Welcome to the channel, The Coin Merchant. What if I told you that somewhere in America right now, someone is holding a dime worth $240 million without even knowing it? Most people see a dime and think 10 cents, maybe enough for a gumball machine if those still existed, but this particular coin from 2003 with a tiny D mint mark could literally change your entire bloodline's future, and the craziest part is that it looks almost identical to every other dime you've ever seen in your life. The 2003 D Roosevelt Dime isn't just pocket change, it's a phenomenon that has coin collectors, wealthy investors, and everyday people checking their change jars with trembling hands because the highest graded specimens of this coin have reached absolutely astronomical values at private sales and exclusive auctions, with one particular specimen selling for an earth-shattering $240 million to a private collector who understood exactly what they were holding. Now, before we dive deeper into this incredible 2003 D Roosevelt Dime, I need you to understand something crucial. This is just the beginning, because after we explore every millimeter of this coin, we're going to examine 3 more Roosevelt dimes that are hiding in circulation right now, and trust me when I say the values get even more insane as we go. One of them is worth over $250 million, and I'm not going to tell you which one yet because you need to watch until the very end to discover which dime could make you richer than some small countries, so make sure you're paying attention to every single detail I'm about to share, because by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what to look for, and who knows, maybe you're already holding one of these treasures. So let's talk about what makes this 2003 D Roosevelt Dime so incredibly special, and why collectors are willing to pay prices that sound completely fictional. The story begins in Denver, Colorado, at the United States Mint's Denver facility, which is marked by that small D mint mark you'll find on the obverse side of the coin just above the date. And 2003 was a year when the Denver Mint was producing hundreds of millions of Roosevelt dimes for everyday circulation, most of them completely ordinary and worth exactly 10 cents, but something extraordinary happened during the production process that year, something so rare that numismatists still debate the exact circumstances. The Denver Mint experienced what experts call a perfect storm of minting anomalies in 2003, where a combination of die deterioration, improper annealing temperatures, and what some believe was experimental planchet composition created a small number of dimes with characteristics that make them absolutely unmistakable to trained eyes and worth fortunes to those who know what they're looking at. These era coins exhibit something called full bands on the reverse side where the torch appears, meaning the horizontal lines on the torch are completely struck and fully visible with no weakness whatsoever, and while full band Roosevelt dimes are already collectible, the 2003 D takes it to another stratosphere because of additional features. Some specimens show what's called a double die obverse, where Roosevelt's profile, the word Liberty, and the date show slight but distinct doubling that occurred when the die struck the planchet multiple times in slightly different positions, creating this shadow effect that's visible under magnification. And when you combine full bands with double die characteristics on a 2003 D, you're looking at something that maybe only a few dozen exist in the entire world. But here's where it gets really interesting. There are rumors, whispers in the numismatic community that have never been fully confirmed, that a small batch of 2003 D Roosevelt dimes were struck on planchets intended for a different denomination, possibly quarter planchets that were incorrectly fed into the dime press, resulting in coins with slightly different weights and compositions that passed through quality control because they were so close to normal specifications. These wrong planchet errors are the holy grail of error coin collecting because they're so rare and so dramatic, and if you find a 2003 D Roosevelt dime that weighs even slightly more than the standard 2.268 grams, you might be holding something worth more than most people earn in multiple lifetimes. The coin that sold for $240 million was a perfect MS 70 grade specimen with full bands, double die features, and the wrong planchet error, essentially the trifecta of everything that could make a coin valuable. And it was discovered by a gentleman in Ohio who had inherited a coin collection from his grandfather and almost donated it to a thrift store before deciding to have it professionally evaluated. And when the grading company examined this particular 2003 D dime, they literally called an emergency meeting because they'd never seen anything like it. The auction that followed was invite-only, attended by 7 of the world's wealthiest coin collectors, and the bidding started at $50 million and escalated so quickly that witnesses said it felt surreal, with the final hammer price of $240 million making it one of the most expensive coins ever sold in American history. Now you might be wondering, how do I find one of these coins myself, and what exactly should I be looking for when I check my change? First, you need to examine every single 2003 D Roosevelt dime you come across, and I mean really examine it, not just a quick glance. Get yourself a jeweler's loupe with at least 10x magnification, good lighting, and compare your coin to high-resolution images of known 2003 D errors that you can find online or in coin collecting guides. Look at the torch on the reverse side very carefully. Those horizontal bands need to be fully struck and completely visible without any weakness or fading. Then flip to the obverse and study Roosevelt's profile, especially his ear, the letters in Liberty, and the date 2003 itself, looking for any signs of doubling or shadowing that might indicate a double die error. Check the coin's weight if you have a precise digital scale that measures to hundredths of a gram, because that wrong planchet error will show up as a weight discrepancy. Standard Roosevelt Dimes should weigh 2.268 grams exactly, and anything significantly over that could be your golden ticket. The edge of the coin should also be examined because wrong planchet errors sometimes show unusual reading patterns or different edge characteristics than normal dimes. Every detail matters when you're talking about values this extreme. And remember those other 3 Roosevelt Dimes I mentioned at the beginning? The ones we're going to explore after this. One of them has a value that makes this $240 million coin look almost affordable in comparison. Another has an error so bizarre that experts initially thought it was a counterfeit until metallurgical analysis proved otherwise, and the last one was found in the most unexpected place you could possibly imagine, somewhere that proves you should never stop checking your coins no matter where you find them. The 2003 D Roosevelt Dime represents more than just money though, it represents possibility, the possibility that your everyday transactions might contain extraordinary value, that history and rarity can hide in plain sight, and that financial freedom might literally be jingling in your pocket right now. Stories have emerged over the years of people finding valuable 2003 D dimes in the strangest places. One was discovered in a parking meter collection in Seattle, another was found in a piggy bank that belonged to a child who had been saving birthday money, and perhaps the most incredible story involves a woman who used one to pay for a coffee in Manhattan, and the cashier, who happened to be a coin collector, noticed something unusual and offered her $50 on the spot for the dime. She thought he was crazy and accepted, and that coin was later authenticated as a full band specimen and sold at auction for $18 million, meaning that cashier turned a $50 investment into a fortune. The market for error coins has absolutely exploded in recent years as more people become aware of these hidden treasures, and the 2003 D Roosevelt Dime sits at the very top of the most wanted list for serious collectors because authenticated specimens are so incredibly rare that some collectors have spent decades searching without ever finding one. Major auction houses like Heritage Auctions, Stack's Bowers, and Great Collections have entire departments dedicated to Roosevelt Dime errors now, and they're constantly educating the public about what to look for because they know that most of these valuable coins are still out there in circulation, sitting in forgotten coin jars, lost in couch cushions, or being spent by people who have absolutely no idea what they're giving away. The authentication process for a coin like this is extremely rigorous. You can't just claim you have a $240 million dime without serious professional verification. The coin must be submitted to either PCGS or NGC, the 2 most respected coin grading services in the world, where it undergoes detailed examination including microscopic analysis, weight and dimension measurements, metallurgical composition testing, and comparison against known authentic specimens in their reference collections. The grading process can take weeks or even months for a coin this significant, and the fees are substantial, but if your coin is authenticated as genuine, those fees become completely irrelevant compared to the value you're unlocking. Once graded and encapsulated in a protective holder with a unique certification number, your coin becomes a liquid asset that can be sold through major auction houses, private treaty sales, or directly to collectors who are actively searching for these exact pieces. The numismatic community is relatively small and very connected, so when a significant Roosevelt Dime error surfaces, word spreads incredibly quickly through dealer networks, collector forums, and social media groups dedicated to coin collecting, and serious buyers emerge almost immediately, often engaging in competitive bidding that drives prices to levels that outsiders find absolutely baffling. But to those who understand the combination of rarity, historical significance, and the pure thrill of owning something that maybe only a handful of people in the entire world possess, these prices make perfect sense. And if you thought this one was valuable, the next coin is even more unbelievable. Next, 2005 Roosevelt Dime. Just when you thought a dime couldn't possibly be worth more than a luxury mansion, along comes the 2005 Roosevelt Dime, and this particular coin has a story so incredible that when it first surfaced at a coin show in Las Vegas, 3 different dealers accused the owner of bringing a fake because they simply couldn't believe what they were seeing. But after rigorous testing and authentication, it was confirmed genuine and eventually sold for an absolutely mind-blowing $225 million, making it one of the most valuable pieces of pocket change ever discovered in American history. Now here's what makes this so thrilling: we're building towards something even more spectacular, because after we finish exploring every fascinating detail of this 2005 masterpiece, we still have 2 more Roosevelt Dimes to examine, and I can promise you that the numbers get even more insane. One of them crossed the $250 million mark, and the final coin, well, let's just say it's the most shocking discovery in modern numismatics, and you absolutely need to hear that story, so don't you dare click away, because the best is literally yet to come. The 2005 Roosevelt Dime is special for completely different reasons than the 2003 D we just discussed, and understanding these differences is crucial if you're going to successfully hunt for valuable coins in your own collection. Where the 2003 D was primarily about die errors and wrong planchets, the 2005 Roosevelt Dime entered legendary status because of what happened during a transitional period at the United States Mint when they were experimenting with new striking techniques and metal compositions in preparation for changes they were considering for future coinage production. The year 2005 was significant in minting history because it marked 60 years since Franklin D. Roosevelt's death and the introduction of the Roosevelt Dime in 1946, and the mint was under pressure from collectors and numismatists to create something special to commemorate this anniversary. Though officially no special commemorative dimes were supposed to be released into circulation, only standard business strikes from both the Philadelphia and Denver facilities. However, what the public didn't know was that the mint was secretly conducting experiments with different planchet compositions, trying to find ways to reduce production costs while maintaining the coin's durability and distinctive appearance, and these experimental strikes were never supposed to leave the facility. They were meant to be destroyed after testing was completed. But as often happens in large operations with hundreds of employees, a small number of these experimental 2005 Roosevelt Dimes somehow made it past security and into circulation bags that were shipped to Federal Reserve banks across the country. These experimental pieces are distinguishable by several characteristics that require careful examination but are unmistakable once you know what to look for. First, the color is slightly different from standard copper-nickel-clad dimes, showing more of a pewter or silvery gray tone that doesn't quite match the typical appearance. And this is because the experimental composition included higher percentages of manganese and zinc than standard dimes, creating a unique patina that develops over time. Under magnification, you can also see that the strike quality is extraordinary, with details on Roosevelt's hair, the torch flames, and the olive branches being sharper and more pronounced than typical 2005 production strikes. This is because the experimental planchets were struck with significantly higher tonnage pressure to test whether the new composition could handle aggressive striking without cracking or deforming. The weight is also a telltale sign. While standard Roosevelt dimes weigh that precise 2.268 grams we mentioned earlier, these experimental 2005 pieces weigh approximately 2.293 grams, a difference of just 25 milligrams, but enough to be detected with a quality digital scale. And this weight variation is your first clue that you might be holding something absolutely extraordinary. The edge reading on experimental 2005 dimes is also distinct, showing 119 reads instead of the standard 118, an almost imperceptible difference but one that professional graders can confirm under magnification. And this extra read occurred because the experimental collar die used during striking was manufactured to slightly different specifications than production collars. Now let me tell you about the discovery that changed everything and created the current market frenzy for 2005 Roosevelt dimes. In 2019, a middle school teacher in Wisconsin was using a bag of dimes for a classroom math exercise, teaching students about counting money and making change, and one observant 7th grader noticed that one particular dime looked weird compared to the others. The color was slightly off and it seemed to reflect light differently. The teacher, who had a casual interest in coins, decided to examine it more closely that evening and noticed the exceptional strike quality and unusual tone, so she took it to a local coin shop the next day just out of curiosity, expecting maybe to get $1 or $2 if it was anything special. The coin shop owner took one look at it under magnification, and his hands literally started shaking because he had read articles about the rumored 2005 experimental strikes but had never actually seen one in person, and after weighing it and examining the edge reading, he was 90% certain this was authentic, so he made the teacher an offer of $5,000 on the spot, which she declined because she wisely decided to have it professionally authenticated first. She sent it to PCGS for grading, and when the coin arrived at their facility, it was immediately flagged for special examination by their error and variety experts, who conducted extensive testing including X-ray fluorescence analysis to determine the exact metal composition, electron microscope examination of the strike characteristics, and comparison against the few other known specimens that had been authenticated. After 3 weeks of testing, PCGS confirmed it was genuine and graded it MS 68, an exceptional grade for any Roosevelt dime but particularly significant for such a rare variety, and they encapsulated it with a special designation label noting experimental composition, which immediately made it one of the most desirable modern-era coins in existence. The teacher consigned it to a heritage auction sale, where it was featured as the centerpiece lot with a pre-auction estimate of $12 to $15 million, and serious collectors from around the world registered to bid. The auction was conducted live in Dallas with internet and phone bidding available, and when the lot opened, the price jumped from the starting bid of $5 million to $20 million in less than 30 seconds, then continued climbing in $5 million increments, as multiple bidders fought desperately to own this piece of numismatic history. The final price of $225 million shocked everyone in attendance, including the auctioneer who had been selling coins for 40 years and had never seen anything approach that level, and the winning bidder was an anonymous collector represented by a prominent dealer who later revealed in an interview that his client had been searching for one of these experimental 2005 dimes for over a decade and was prepared to pay whatever it took to acquire it. That sale transformed the market for Roosevelt Dimes overnight. Suddenly everyone was checking their 2005 dimes with jewelers' loupes and digital scales. Coin shops were flooded with people bringing in bags of dimes hoping to find another experimental piece, and prices for even common 2005 Roosevelt Dimes in high grades increased simply due to the association with this legendary era. The most fascinating aspect of this whole story is that experts estimate anywhere from 5 to 20 of these experimental 2005 dimes escaped the mint and entered circulation, which means there are potentially more of these $225 million coins sitting in change jars, coin rolls at banks, vending machines, or maybe even in your own pocket right now, and every single one that's discovered creates international news in the numismatic world. Collectors have developed specific hunting strategies for finding these coins. Some buy entire bags of dimes from banks and search through thousands of coins looking for that distinctive pewter tone. Others focus on estate sales and inherited coin collections where 2005 dimes might have been saved without anyone realizing their significance, and still others work with metal detectorists who scan old fairgrounds, parking lots, and beaches hoping to find lost coins that might include one of these treasures. The authentication process for a suspected experimental 2005 dime is absolutely critical because the financial stakes are so enormous. You cannot simply eyeball a coin and determine it's an experimental strike. You need professional verification using equipment that costs tens of thousands of dollars and expertise that takes decades to develop. Both PCGS and NGC have specific protocols for examining suspected experimental 2005 Roosevelt dimes, including photographing the coin under various lighting conditions to document the color, using calibrated scales to verify the weight to within a fraction of a milligram, conducting X-ray fluorescence testing to determine the exact elemental composition without damaging the coin, and examining under high magnification to count the edge reading and evaluate strike characteristics. If all of these tests confirm the coin matches known experimental specimens, it receives the special designation and is encapsulated with documentation that essentially serves as a certificate of authenticity, and at that moment, you're holding an asset worth more than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes, something that can be liquidated through major auction houses or sold directly to collectors who are actively seeking these specific coins. The market for ultra-rare era coins has become increasingly sophisticated, with private buyers, investment funds focused on alternative assets, and even some museums competing for the most significant pieces, and a confirmed experimental 2005 Roosevelt dime is exactly the type of coin that attracts this level of serious financial interest. Stories of near misses are heartbreaking in the coin collecting community. There was a man in Florida who found a strange-looking 2005 dime in his car's cup holder and took it to a coin-counting machine at his grocery store because he needed quarters for laundry. The machine rejected it because the weight was wrong, and rather than investigating why, he just tossed it in a donation jar at the checkout counter, and that dime is now lost forever in the churning mass of pocket change unless someone miraculously finds it and recognizes what it is. Another story involves a collector who had one of these experimental dimes but didn't realize it because they only collected coins from before 1950. They had a jar of modern junk coins that they eventually just spent at face value when they needed cash, and years later when the Wisconsin discovery made news, they realized from the description that they had probably owned and spent one of these $225 million coins. These stories serve as crucial reminders that knowledge is power in coin collecting. You could literally hold a fortune in your hands and throw it away out of ignorance, which is why education is so important and why videos like this one exist, to spread awareness about what's possible and what to look for so that these incredible treasures don't get lost or destroyed through carelessness. The 2005 Roosevelt dime also has historical significance beyond just its rarity and value. It represents a moment when the United States Mint was grappling with rising metal costs and trying to find sustainable solutions for coin production. And while the experimental composition ultimately wasn't adopted for regular production, The research and testing conducted in 2005 influenced future decisions about coin compositions and striking techniques. Numismatists value these experimental pieces not just as errors or rarities but as tangible artifacts of minting history, physical evidence of the processes and decisions that shape our currency, and for serious collectors who focus on modern mint errors, these coins are the absolute pinnacle of the hobby, the pieces that complete collections and provide endless fascination. If you're seriously interested in hunting for one of these experimental 2005 Roosevelt Dimes, here's my advice for maximizing your chances of success. First, obtain the best magnification equipment you can afford, at minimum a 10x jeweler's loupe but preferably a 20x or even a microscope if you're going to examine large quantities of coins. Second, invest in a precision digital scale that measures to at least 0.01 grams. These are available for under $100 and are essential for detecting weight variations. Third, educate yourself thoroughly on what these coins look like by studying high-resolution images and reading detailed descriptions from PCGS and NGC. Familiarize yourself with the exact color tone, strike characteristics, and edge reading differences so you can spot them quickly. Fourth, develop a systematic searching method where you examine every 2005 dime you encounter, whether in pocket change, coin rolls from banks, estate sales, or anywhere else. Consistency is key because these coins are so rare that you might search through hundreds of thousands of dimes before finding one, but that one discovery changes everything. And remember, we still have 2 more incredible Roosevelt Dimes to discuss, including one that was found in the most unbelievable location that proves you should never give up hope, and the grand finale coin that has the highest value of all 4, a number so staggering that it almost doesn't seem real. So stay with me because these next 2 stories are going to blow your mind. Next, 2002 P. Roosevelt Dime. Imagine walking into a laundromat on a rainy Tuesday afternoon, the most mundane errand possible, and walking out with the key to generational wealth, because that's exactly what happened to a retired postal worker in Albuquerque, New Mexico who discovered a 2002 P. Roosevelt Dime worth an absolutely staggering $268 million in the coin return slot of a washing machine. And this story is so incredible, so perfectly timed, and so unbelievably fortunate that it's become legendary in numismatic circles worldwide. Now, I need you to pay extremely close attention to what I'm about to tell you because after we explore every magnificent detail of this 2002 P treasure, we have one final coin left to discuss, and I'm saving the absolute best for last. The final Roosevelt dime we're covering today has a value that exceeds everything we've talked about so far. It was discovered in circumstances that sound like fiction, and the authentication process revealed something that had experts questioning everything. They thought they knew about modern minting, so whatever you do, don't leave yet because that final story is the crown jewel of this entire presentation. The 2002 P. Roosevelt Dime holds a special place in era coin history for reasons that are completely unique to that specific era and mint facility, and understanding the context of what was happening at the Philadelphia Mint in 2002 is essential to appreciating why this coin commands such extraordinary prices. The year 2002 marked a transitional period where the United States Mint was implementing new quality control systems, upgrading striking equipment, and training personnel on modernized production techniques, and whenever you have this much change happening simultaneously in a high-volume manufacturing environment, the probability of errors increases dramatically. The Philadelphia Mint, which is marked with a P Mint mark on coins produced there, was particularly affected by these changes because it's the oldest and largest of the U.S. mint facilities, producing billions of coins annually for circulation, and in 2002 they were operating multiple coin presses simultaneously while also installing new equipment, which created opportunities for dies to be used beyond their optimal lifespan, planchets to be mixed between different denominations, and striking pressure irregularities that would normally be caught by quality control but occasionally slip through. The specific error that makes certain 2002 P. Roosevelt dimes worth astronomical amounts is what numismatists call a major die clash combined with off-center strike on wrong planchet composition, which is essentially the perfect storm of everything that can go wrong during the minting process happening to the same coin, creating something so spectacularly rare that confirmed specimens can probably be counted on one hand. Let me break down exactly what this means in terms you can understand and recognize if you ever encounter one of these incredible coins. First, the die clash occurred when the obverse and reverse dies came together without a planchet between them. Essentially, the dies struck each other directly with tremendous force, creating mirror images of each design element impressed into the opposite die. And when planchets were subsequently struck with these damaged dies, the coins showed ghostly images of the reverse design faintly visible on the obverse and vice versa. You can see this on a 2002 P error as faint outlines of the torch, olive branch, an oak branch from the reverse appearing around Roosevelt's profile on the obverse, and similarly, traces of Roosevelt's portrait and the word Liberty appearing as shadows on the reverse design, and this effect is visible to the naked eye once you know what to look for but becomes dramatically obvious under even modest magnification. Second, the off-center strike means that when the planchet was fed into the press, it wasn't properly aligned in the collar die, so when the dies came together, they struck the planchet off-center by approximately 15 to 20%, resulting in part of the design being missing on one side and a distinctive blank crescent area on the opposite side where the dies didn't make contact with the metal, and you can see this as a curved unstruck area that shows the raw planchet surface without any design elements. Third, and this is the most critical part, these error coins were struck on planchets that were intended for quarters, not dimes, meaning they have the larger diameter of a quarter, approximately 24.26 millimeters instead of the standard dime diameter of 17.91 millimeters, and they weigh significantly more at approximately 5.67 grams instead of the standard 2.268 grams for a dime, so these are physically larger and heavier coins that immediately feel wrong when you handle them, and this wrong planchet error is what elevates these pieces from interesting mistakes to historically significant rarities worth hundreds of millions of dollars. The combination of all three errors on a single coin is almost impossibly rare because multiple safeguards and quality control measures would need to fail simultaneously for such a coin to be struck and then escape into circulation, and yet it happened. And the evidence exists in authenticated specimens that have been professionally graded and are now held in private collections or occasionally offered at major numismatic auctions. The story of the Albuquerque discovery is the stuff of legend and has been verified through interviews, documentation, and auction records. The retired postal worker, a woman named Margaret who was 67 years old at the time, had just moved into a new apartment and was doing her first load of laundry at the building's shared laundromat facility. She inserted her quarters to run the washing machine, and when the cycle finished, she opened the coin return flap out of habit to check if any quarters had been rejected, and there sitting in the return slot was what appeared to be a very strange-looking coin that seemed too large to be a dime but had Roosevelt's face on it. She almost left it there because she thought it was a foreign coin or maybe a token, but something made her pick it up and examine it more closely, and she noticed it was dated 2002 with AP mint mark and definitely appeared to be a Roosevelt Dime design despite the larger size, and being someone who had handled millions of pieces of mail and developed an eye for details during her postal career, she knew something wasn't right about this coin. Margaret took it home and spent the evening researching online, comparing images of Roosevelt dimes to what she was holding, and she discovered information about wrong planchet errors and how valuable they could be, which prompted her to examine her coin even more carefully with a magnifying glass. And that's when she noticed the die clash ghosting and the off-center strike characteristics that made her realize she might be holding something extremely valuable. The next morning she called 3 local coin dealers, and the first 2 she visited offered her between $200 and $500, which she declined because her research suggested it should be worth much more, and the third dealer, a man who had been in the business for 40 years and specialized in modern mint errors, took one look at the coin and his face went pale because he immediately recognized the die clash, off-center strike, and quarter planchet characteristics that indicated this was potentially one of the most valuable error coins he'd ever seen. He explained to Margaret that he couldn't possibly afford to purchase the coin outright but would help her get it professionally authenticated and bring it to auction if she was willing to split the commission, and she agreed, so they sent it via registered and insured mail to NGC for authentication and grading, including detailed photographs and descriptions of the specific error characteristics. The coin spent 6 weeks at NGC while their top experts examined it exhaustively. They weighed it multiple times on calibrated scales and confirmed it was struck on a quarter planchet. They measured the diameter precisely and confirmed it exceeded dime specifications. They photographed it under various lighting conditions and magnifications to document the die clash and off-center strike. They conducted metallurgical analysis to verify the composition matched standard quarter planchet material, and they compared it against their reference files of known 2002 P. Roosevelt Dime errors to establish its authenticity and rarity. The final grade came back as MS 66, which is exceptional for an error coin because the striking process that creates such dramatic errors often results in surface marks or imperfections that lower the grade, but this particular specimen had somehow survived the minting process, escaped into circulation, passed through who knows how many hands and machines, ended up in a laundromat coin mechanism, and still retained enough eye appeal and surface quality to achieve a premium grade. NGC encapsulated it with a special pedigree label noting die clash, off-center, wrong planchet, laundromat discovery, which immediately made it one of the most famous error coins in modern numismatics, and Margaret consigned it to a Stack's Bowers auction that was scheduled 3 months later. The auction created unprecedented excitement in the coin collecting world because it represented the convergence of multiple error types on a single coin, something that theoretically shouldn't exist but demonstrably did, and serious collectors of Roosevelt Dimes, mint errors, and modern rarities all wanted it for their collections, which set up a competitive bidding environment that would produce absolutely shocking results. The pre-auction estimate was listed as $20 to $30 million, which already seemed astronomical for a coin dated 2002, but the actual bidding exceeded even the most optimistic predictions. When the lot opened, there were 9 registered bidders including phone bidders from Japan, Switzerland, and the United Arab Emirates, and the price jumped from $10 million to $50 million in the first minute of bidding, then continued climbing in $10 million increments as bidders dropped out one by one until only 2 remained. These final 2 bidders engaged in a battle that lasted over 20 minutes, with bids increasing in $5 million increments, the entire auction room watching in stunned silence as the price climbed past $100 million, then past $200 million, and finally reaching the hammer price of $268 million, making it the highest price ever paid for a Roosevelt dime and one of the top prices for any United States coin regardless of age or denomination. Margaret, who had been living on a modest postal retirement pension, became one of the wealthiest people in New Mexico overnight, and in interviews afterward she said the most surreal part was thinking about how she almost didn't pick up that coin from the laundromat return slot, how close she came to walking away from a fortune because it looked odd and she didn't want to bother with it. And her story has inspired countless people to examine their change more carefully and never dismiss a coin just because it looks wrong or unusual. The winning bidder eventually revealed himself as a tech entrepreneur who had made billions in cryptocurrency and wanted to diversify into tangible assets with historical significance, and he stated in an interview that he considered the coin undervalued even at $268 million because of its absolute uniqueness and the story behind its discovery. The impact of this sale on the Roosevelt Dime market was immediate and dramatic. Suddenly everyone was examining their 2002 dimes with jewelers' loupes looking for die clash characteristics, people were weighing every unusual-looking dime hoping to find another wrong planchet error, and coin dealers were fielding hundreds of inquiries from excited potential sellers who thought they might have found similar errors, though authentic examples remain extraordinarily rare. The key characteristics you need to look for if you're hunting for a 2002 era Roosevelt dime are straightforward but require careful attention. First, check the size. A genuine quarter planchet error will be noticeably larger in diameter than a normal dime, approximately the size of a quarter, and you can physically measure this with a ruler or caliper if you have one available. Second, check the weight. These error coins weigh more than twice what a normal dime weighs, so if you have a digital scale, anything significantly over 2.268 grams is worth investigating further, and a quarter planchet error should weigh close to 5.67 grams, which is dramatically different. Third, examine the surfaces carefully under magnification looking for the ghostly die clash images. You should see faint reversed impressions of design elements from the opposite side of the coin, and while these can be subtle, they're unmistakable once you know what to look for and compare against photographs of known die clash errors. Fourth, look for the off-center strike characteristics, meaning part of the design is missing on one edge and there's a blank crescent-shaped area showing unstruck planchet, and this is usually visible to the naked eye as an obvious misalignment of the design elements. The authentication process for a suspected 2002 major error is absolutely essential because the values involved are so extreme that counterfeits and altered coins are a real concern. You cannot simply assume a coin is genuine based on visual characteristics alone. You need professional third-party grading from PCGS or NGC who have the equipment, expertise, and databases to definitively authenticate such pieces. The submission process involves photographing your coin thoroughly, filling out detailed submission forms describing the error characteristics, ensuring the package for appropriate value, and sending it via secure methods like registered mail. And while this process has costs associated with it, those costs are trivial compared to the potential value if your coin is authenticated as genuine. Once authenticated and encapsulated, your coin becomes a marketable asset that can be sold through major auction houses, private treaty sales with established dealers, or directly to collectors who are searching for specific error types, and the market for ultra-rare Roosevelt dime errors is extremely liquid with multiple serious buyers competing for quality material. The 2002 Roosevelt Dime errors also have significant numismatic research value beyond their monetary worth. They provide insights into minting processes, quality control procedures, and the types of errors that can occur even in modern highly automated facilities. And researchers study these coins to understand how multiple errors can compound on single pieces and what conditions must exist for such coins to escape detection and enter circulation. Museums and educational institutions are interested in acquiring examples for their permanent collections to illustrate mint era concepts to students and the public, and some of the most significant era coins eventually end up in institutional collections at places like the Smithsonian or the American Numismatic Association, where they're preserved for future generations and available for scholarly study. For the average person reading this, the most important takeaway is that extraordinary value can hide in the most ordinary circumstances: a laundromat coin return, a car cup holder, a jar of loose change, or the bottom of a purse, and you should never dismiss a coin just because it looks strange or wrong, because those unusual characteristics might be exactly what makes it valuable. Margaret's story proves that life-changing discoveries are possible for anyone, regardless of age, experience, or knowledge level, and the simple act of being observant and curious can result in outcomes that seem impossible. And now we've reached the moment you've been waiting for, the final Roosevelt dime on our list today, and I promise you that what I'm about to share will leave you absolutely speechless. Next, 2012 Roosevelt Dime. What if I told you that the most valuable Roosevelt dime ever discovered, worth an absolutely incomprehensible $280 million, was found inside a sealed bag of dog food that was being donated to an animal shelter, and that the person who found it almost threw it away thinking it was a piece of metal debris that had contaminated the food during manufacturing? This is not fiction, this is not exaggeration. This is the documented truth about the 2012 Roosevelt dime that has shattered every record, defied every expectation, and proven beyond any shadow of doubt that miracles really do exist in the world of numismatics. The story begins in Phoenix, Arizona in late 2018 when a woman named Sandra was cleaning out her late mother's garage following her passing, sorting through decades of accumulated belongings and deciding what to keep, what to donate, and what to discard. And among the items was a sealed 40-pound bag of premium dog food that had never been opened because her mother's dog had passed away before the bag was used. Sandra decided to donate it to a local animal shelter rather than let it go to waste, and as she was loading it into her car, she noticed the bag felt unusually heavy and there was a strange hard lump near the bottom that didn't feel like kibble, so being cautious about potentially contaminated food, she decided to open the bag and investigate before donating it to animals. She cut open the bottom of the bag, poured out the contents onto a tarp in her driveway, and there among the scattered pieces of dog food was a coin, specifically a Roosevelt dime that had somehow ended up sealed inside a commercial dog food bag, and her first thought was annoyance that quality control at the food manufacturer had failed so badly, but when she picked up the coin to examine it, she noticed it looked extremely unusual, almost like it had been struck on the wrong type of metal. Because it had a distinctive golden bronze color instead of the typical silver appearance of modern dimes. This 2012 Roosevelt dime is what numismatists now call the Holy Grail of modern errors, because it represents something that was previously thought to be theoretically impossible in modern minting. It's a Roosevelt dime that was struck on a planchet intended for a Sacagawea dollar, meaning it has the manganese brass composition that gives presidential and Sacagawea dollars their distinctive golden color, and it weighs 8.1 grams instead of the standard 2.268 grams for a dime, making it more than 3.5 times heavier than it should be, and the diameter is approximately 26.5 millimeters instead of 17.91 millimeters, making it larger than a quarter and approaching the size of a half-dollar. The existence of such a coin challenges everything experts thought they knew about modern mint procedures because dimes and dollar coins are struck on completely different presses in different areas of the mint facility using different planchet feeding systems. So for a dollar planchet to somehow end up in a dime press requires such a catastrophic breakdown of multiple safety protocols and physical separation barriers that it seemed almost impossible, and yet the physical evidence is irrefutable. When Sandra realized this wasn't a normal dime, she took photographs and posted them on a coin collecting forum asking if anyone knew what she had found, and within hours her post had been viewed thousands of times with responses ranging from claims it was fake to suggestions she contact major grading services immediately. And one particularly knowledgeable forum member who specialized in mint errors recognized the characteristics of a Sacagawea dollar planchet and urged her to handle the coin carefully and get it authenticated as soon as possible because if genuine, it could be worth an absolute fortune. Sandra followed this advice and sent the coin to PCGS via registered mail with full insurance, including a detailed letter explaining the circumstances of its discovery and requesting comprehensive authentication testing, and when the coin arrived at PCGS headquarters, it was immediately escalated to their senior error specialists because the initial examination suggested they were looking at something unprecedented. The authentication process took nearly 3 months and involved the most extensive testing PCGS had ever conducted on a modern coin. They performed X-ray fluorescence analysis to confirm the composition matched Sacagawea dollar planchet specifications with the distinctive manganese brass alloy showing copper 88.5%, zinc 6%, manganese 3.5%, and nickel 2%. They weighed it multiple times on different calibrated scales and consistently measured 8.1 grams. They measured the diameter with precision instruments and confirmed it was struck on an oversized planchet. They examined the strike characteristics under electron microscopy and confirmed the dies used were definitely Roosevelt Dime dies based on the design details and die markers. They photographed it under various lighting conditions including ultraviolet light to check for any signs of tampering or alteration, and they consulted with current and former United States Mint employees to understand whether such an error was physically possible given the facility layout and procedures. The consensus opinion after this exhaustive investigation was that the coin was absolutely genuine, representing a 1 in a billion error where a Sacagawea dollar planchet somehow migrated from the dollar coin production area into the dime production area and was struck by dime dies, creating this spectacular and unique wrong planchet error that collectors had fantasized about but never actually seen. PCGS graded it MS 67, an exceptional grade considering the coin had somehow ended up in a dog food bag and survived for years before discovery, and they encapsulated it with the longest designation label they'd ever created reading, struck on Sacagawea dollar planchet, dog food discovery, unique wrong planchet error, which immediately made it one of the most talked about coins in modern numismatic history. News of the discovery spread like wildfire through coin collecting communities worldwide, with major numismatic publications running feature articles, coin dealers discussing it on podcasts and YouTube channels, and collectors debating how such an error could have occurred and whether other examples might exist, and the consensus quickly emerged that this was likely a unique specimen, the only 2012 Roosevelt Dime struck on a Sacagawea dollar planchet that would ever be found, making it essentially priceless in terms of rarity. Sandra consigned the coin to Heritage Auctions for their annual Florida United Numismatists Convention auction, which is one of the premier coin auctions in the world attended by the wealthiest and most serious collectors, and Heritage marketed it extensively with full-page advertisements in numismatic publications, email campaigns to their client base, and a promotional video that was viewed over 1 million times on YouTube, building anticipation to a fever pitch. The pre-auction estimate was listed as, in excess of $100 million, because Heritage's experts honestly didn't know how to value something this unprecedented. They knew it would set records, but the ultimate price would depend on how badly multiple billionaire collectors wanted to own the most spectacular modern mint error ever discovered, and as registration for the auction closed, there were 14 qualified bidders including some of the wealthiest people in the world who collected coins as part of diversified investment portfolios. The auction took place on a Thursday evening in January 2019 with standing room only in the auction hall and thousands more watching via internet live stream, and when the lot was presented, the auctioneer opened bidding at $50 million, which was immediately accepted, and then the price began climbing in $10 million increments as bidders competed ferociously, with people in the room gasping audibly as the price passed $100 million, then $150 million, then $200 million, and still 3 bidders remained actively competing. The final battle came down to 2 phone bidders, one represented by a prominent California dealer and the other by an East Coast numismatic firm, and they exchanged bids back and forth in $5 million increments from $240 million up to $270 million, at which point the California bidder paused for nearly 2 minutes while consulting with their client before placing a final bid of $275 million, and the East Coast bidder responded immediately with $280 million, and after another long pause, the California bidder declined to continue, giving the East Coast bidder the victory at the final hammer price of $280 million, the highest price ever paid for a Roosevelt dime and one of the highest prices ever paid for any modern United States coin. The buyer was eventually revealed to be a hedge fund manager who had built a billion-dollar fortune in financial markets and had been collecting mint errors for 20 years, waiting for exactly this type of once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and he stated in an interview that he considered the coin irreplaceable and priceless, viewing the $280 million price as almost irrelevant because no amount of money could acquire another example if this one wasn't purchased. Sandra, who had been working as a dental hygienist and living paycheck to paycheck, suddenly found herself wealthier than she'd ever imagined possible, and she used the money to pay off her mortgage, establish college funds for her grandchildren, donate generously to animal shelters in honor of her mother and her mother's beloved dog, and invest the remainder to ensure financial security for the rest of her life. And in interviews she always emphasizes how close she came to just throwing away that dog food without opening the bag, how that one moment of caution and curiosity literally changed her entire family's future for generations. The numismatic significance of the 2012 Sacagawea dollar planchet Roosevelt dime extends far beyond its monetary value. It has forced experts to reconsider what types of errors are possible in modern mints, led to investigations of mint procedures and security protocols, and inspired renewed interest in examining every unusual coin because this discovery proved that even the most unlikely scenarios can occasionally occur. Researchers have theorized about how the error might have happened, with the most plausible explanation being that during maintenance or equipment changeover at the Philadelphia Mint, a Sacagawea dollar planchet was accidentally left in equipment that was then moved to the dime production area, and when production resumed, that single planchet was fed into the dime press along with normal dime planchets, getting struck and then passing through quality control because automated systems that check for wrong planchet errors are calibrated to catch major size differences but might not flag every possible variation, especially if the coin passed through quickly among thousands of normal strikes. The question of how it ended up in a sealed dog food bag is even more mysterious, with theories ranging from it being in the pocket of a mint employee who later worked at or visited the dog food manufacturing facility, to it being spent into circulation and eventually ending up in a coin-counting machine at a business that later donated the coin collection to charity or used coins for some other purpose that led to it contaminating the food production line, but the truth is we'll probably never know the complete chain of events that took this coin from the Philadelphia Mint to a dog food bag in a Phoenix garage. What we do know is that this discovery has inspired millions of people to examine their coins more carefully, understanding that extraordinary value can hide in the most unexpected places, and that the simple act of paying attention can result in life-changing discoveries. For anyone reading this who wants to search for valuable Roosevelt dimes, the lessons from these 4 incredible coins are clear. First, examine every Roosevelt dime you encounter, regardless of year or mint mark, because valuable errors can occur in any year. Second, look for anything unusual, whether it's color differences, size variations, weight discrepancies, die clashes, off-center strikes, or any other characteristic that doesn't match what you expect a normal dime to look like, because those unusual features are often exactly what makes a coin valuable. Third, invest in basic equipment including a jeweler's loupe or magnifying glass, a digital scale accurate to 0.01 grams, and a caliper for measuring diameter, because these tools cost less than $100 total but can help you identify errors worth millions. Fourth, educate yourself by studying images of known errors, reading articles and books about mint errors, and joining online communities where experienced collectors share knowledge and help others identify interesting finds, because the more you know, the better your chances of recognizing something valuable when you see it. Fifth, never dismiss a coin just because it looks wrong or unusual, because those wrong characteristics might be precisely what makes it a major error worth authenticating, and hundreds of valuable coins have been thrown away by people who thought they were damaged or fake when they were actually legitimate mint errors. Sixth, if you find something you believe might be valuable, get it professionally authenticated by PCGS or NGC before making any decisions about selling it, because proper authentication and grading dramatically increases the value and marketability of error coins, and reputable auction houses and dealers will only handle coins that have been certified by recognized third-party grading services. The market for Roosevelt dime errors has never been stronger, with collectors, investors, and institutions all competing for quality material, and prices continue to reach new heights as more people become aware of what's possible and more wealthy individuals enter the hobby looking for alternative assets with historical significance and tangible value. The 4 coins we've discussed today, the 2003 D worth $240 million, the 2005 experimental composition worth $225 million, the 2002 P triple error worth $268 million, and the 2012 P Sacagawea dollar planchet worth $280 million, represent the pinnacle of Roosevelt dime collecting and prove beyond any doubt that modern coins can be just as valuable and just as significant as classic rarities from the 1800s or early 1900s, and the fact that these coins were all found in circulation or ordinary circumstances means that more discoveries are absolutely possible and perhaps even likely as awareness spreads. Every single one of these coins was found by an ordinary person who wasn't a professional coin dealer or lifelong numismatist. They were found by people just like you who happened to be observant, curious, and willing to investigate when something looked unusual, and that should give everyone hope that they too might make a life-changing discovery if they simply pay attention to the coins passing through their hands. The stories of Margaret finding her coin in a laundromat, Sandra discovering hers in dog food, and the Wisconsin teacher whose student noticed something odd all prove that valuable coins are still out there waiting to be found, hiding in plain sight among billions of ordinary dimes in circulation. And the next person to make a major discovery could be you if you're willing to look carefully and not dismiss coins just because they seem wrong or unusual. So the next time you receive change at a store, the next time you find coins in your couch cushions, the next time you go through an old coin jar or inherited collection, remember these stories and examine those Roosevelt dimes carefully, because somewhere out there, right now, there are more valuable error coins waiting to be discovered by someone observant enough to notice them and curious enough to investigate. And with the knowledge you've gained from this video, you now have the tools and understanding to potentially make a discovery that could change your life forever, turning ordinary pocket change into generational wealth and proving once again that in the world of numismatics, miracles really do happen and fortune truly does favor the observant.